So this is going to go on the speaker. So I guess you're not speaking yet. So yes. So start talking there, guys.
Okay, are we ready to start?
Yeah, you just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like if everybody can see me, I guess I'll just sit down and talk right from here. It'll be easier.
Yes, there is.
I guess I want to start off by thanking all you people for coming here to listen tonight. This is almost sort of like a homecoming for me. There's not too many faces here that I recognize, so I actually maybe should give you a little background on myself. First of all, I left this area back in '71, and when I got married, I moved out of this area. For 25 years before that, I grew up in the same home that Ellwyne Ballantyne spent his years at Crothers Corners in. So that's what kind of gave me an interest in this man's life. I grew up in the same home that he grew up in. When he came from India, he lived with my grandparents. And and I guess some people might say, well, James, why are you sort of the expert on Ellwyne Ballantyne? Well, I'm not really an expert, but I guess I was really blessed in the fact that I knew three people personally who knew Ellwyne Ballantyne personally and spent a lot of time with him and talked to him on a regular basis while he lived at Crothers Corners. And the first and foremost person that told me about Ellwyne Ballantyne was my grandmother. And I'm just going to touch on a few things. It's all in Jody's book. And I guess I would really recommend buying the book. I'll tell you, it's a book that'll bring tears to your eyes for joy and tears for sorrows. And Jody has given me a lot of pats on the back, what she said here, but actually, I just want to make it clear that I've learned a lot about Ellwyne Ballantyne from Jody's research. That yes, I knew personal stuff that I heard from family members. First of all, like I said, my grandmother, who raised Ellwyne for about 9 years when he lived with her and her husband, my grandmother and grandfather at Crothers Corners. And so I learned a lot from her. The second person that I knew personally that knew Ellwyne was his half sister. And she came over with Ellwyne from India. Ellwyne at that time was about 10 years old, and I think his sister was about 5 or 6. Don't quote me on the ages, but I think that's about uh, uh, what ages they were. And so this half sister of Ellwyne's, she spent all of her life with him until he went into the armed forces and went over to France and never came back. So she told me a lot about her half brother. The other person that I knew personally on a regular basis was my great uncle Neil Crothers. He's mentioned in the book too. All these people that I'm mentioning are in Jody's book. And my uncle Neil Crothers actually lived just on the kitty corner. No, it wasn't kitty corner, just across the corner from my grandfather's farm. So Ellwyne, he spent just about as much time on my great uncle Neil's farm as what he did on my grandfather's farm. Now, I never knew my grandfather, but I knew my uncle Neil well, and he would come up and visit us when I was a kid, and he often talked about Ellwyne Ballantyne. Another person, now I never talked to this person too much that knew him. I was hoping his son was going to be here tonight. Is Jim Reith. I think most of you guys probably know Jim Reith. Well, Jim Reith's father, Charlie Reith, lived just down the road, and he was a real good friend of Ellwyne Ballantyne. They were both about the same age. And when Ellwyne Ballantyne signed up to go in the Army, the community had a going away party for him. And they wrote up going away statement, I guess, as to what they thought about him, how they saw him, what kind of a guy he was, and all this. They took up a collection and bought a gold signet ring to give him at that going away party. And Charlie Reith and Neil Crothers were the two that delivered the address, read it out to everybody, and signed the address and give them this gold ring. And actually, Jody has recorded in her book, actually the actual address that was read back then in 1915, I guess it was, when he went overseas. And that was made available to me by Maisie Crothers. I don't know whether, well, that's Harold remembers her well, and probably there's some other people here that remember Maisie Crothers. She grew up in Crothers Corners, but she lived most of her life in Ellwyne. And somehow she ended up owning this original writing that was read at the party that was held for Ellwyne, and she gave it to me to have a copy in the Clan News at one point. I brought along a few artifacts here. You guys can come up and have a look at them at your own leisure afterwards. I'll lay them out on the table here. This is a picture here of, this is Ellwyne Ballantyne when he was a young kid in India. This is his mother who died in India. And this about a year or two after this picture was taken. This is her second husband here, who's in the book as well. His name has been changed. I guess you might say to protect the innocent or the guilty, one or the other. And this is Valletta McFarland. Hands up here. How many people remember Valletta McFarland? Good. Yeah, she lived to be 99 years old. And the reason how I got to learn a lot from her was I would go there on holidays and spend maybe a part of a week or a week at William and Valletta's place when they were on the farm during my summer holidays. And I also spent time with my grandmother Crothers. I would go to vacation Bible school and stay at her place. And she told me these stories time and time again. On both these homes, Valletta's home and my grandmother's home, what got me interested in Ellwyne Ballantyne was they both had an oval photo hanging in a prominent place in their house of this soldier. Well, I'd never met a soldier before as a small kid, and this picture of a soldier really created a lot of questions in my mind. So I questioned them unrelentlessly, both Valletta and my grandmother, about this soldier's picture hanging on the wall. So I guess that's why I Jody, how I sort of gathered my first interest in Ellwyne Ballantyne. And so that's the one artifact I brought along here. When Ellwyne came home from basic training, he only came home once. Once he left home, he went in basic training, and Jody covers all that in the book, the different places he spent training at. And when he came home, my dad was about 6 years old. And I actually got a picture here. Yeah. Right here. You can have a look at this later. That's my dad when Ellwyne came home for this one last visit back to the farm before he went overseas. And this picture here was taken at that same time out in front of the old house that you saw on the slideshow there. And this is my dad wearing Ellwyne's hat and tunic. And during that visit, he had been in basic training, and I guess at barracks or wherever, he was able to buy this little toy cannon. So I brought this little toy cannon home for my dad and give it to my dad, my 6-year-old dad at the time. And the 25 years I spent in that same house before I got married and moved out, this little toy cannon sat on a corner shelf up in the front room, and you daresn't touch it because it was so fragile and it was really important to Dad, and you could never touch it, but once or twice he did take it down and show me how it worked. It's actually spring loaded. You can pull this part out here and you can let it fly like that. And if you put something in there, and he showed me once how it would work, if you do everything just right, you could take an old fashioned wooden match, put it down the end of the barrel here, pull this back like this, and if you go up against a brick wall or a stone or something like that, and let it go like that, the match will come out, hit the stone wall, and light up.
We get a demonstration. Just that part of that, Hilton's part.
Yeah. Okay, now here's some things actually right from Ellwyne Ballantyne himself. Two of them are. When my brother and I canned and sold the home farm, I checked the attic out real well there because I knew there'd be stuff up in there that nobody had looked at in years and years and years. And Jody, that's where I found a lot of the letters and that and all that stuff that you and I looked over. But amongst that, Ellwyne's hat badge was up in the attic in a trunk, along with his dog collar, right here. Now there was two of these dog collars. I gave one to my brother Ken. I'm not sure exactly whatever happened to that. I think his daughter probably has it now. But they're a little bit different than, okay, these are the, on this hat here, you can see a similar badge on it. Okay, this is the more normal one, that just the regular Canadian one. These ones here were special ones. If you read on here, it says on there, overseas. So the guys that went overseas, they got one of these here. If you weren't on the expeditionary force, you're more allowed to just have one of these like this. So anyways, those are Ellwyne's actual badges, his hat badge, his dog collar. These are the same medals that now some, I'm not sure what family members have them, but my grandmother showed me actually Ellwyne's actual medals. Because when I holidayed with her, she'd take me up into the attic and open up this trunk and show me all the stuff that Ellwyne, that she had keepsakes of Ellwyne stored in this trunk. And I saw Ellwyne's way back then when I was a kid. I saw Ellwyne's actual medals. Now, I don't, some family member has them, but I don't know exactly where they are, or who has them now. Now, these are exactly the same, only those of you who know something about medals know that the name, First World War ones anyways, the name of the soldier was engraved around the edge of them, like right on the very edge around here. Now, these ones here have another soldier's name on, so that's the way you can tell who they were actually issued to originally. So that's what this is.
So can we start asking you questions too along the way here? Are you ready?
Maybe I'll finish off. And then
Okay, you
can ask
finish off,
questions.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, I brought along some other artifacts here. Okay, now in the pictures of Ellwyne, he's wearing a hat very similar to this one here. This is a First World War original Canadian issue army hat. And this is more or less a dress one. Okay, if you look at this picture here, this picture is 1915, and it's an artist's conception of the second battle at Ypres. Some people pronounce that Yipes, some people pronounce it Yerpres. So I'm not sure what's the correct pronunciation of it, but that battle was from April the 22nd to May the 25th, 1915. And you can see in this picture here, there's no helmets like this. They're all like this one. And there's a reason for that, because in the early stages of the First World War, this is what the guys in their trench wore, hats like this. This is, if you were on dress or on parade, you would wear a little fancier one like this. When Ellwyne came home, and the pictures that are taken of him when he came home on leave, this is the type he had on. And the first year or two of the war, there was a lot of our soldiers getting killed by head injuries. And so they were being shot through the head if they were sticking up over the trenches or wherever. So that's when they came out with the metal helmet like this. And after 1 or 2 years of wearing these, which they were still all wearing in this picture. Then they came out with the metal helmet. By the way, this one here, this is a reproduction. This one here I bought at a gun show back a few years ago. It's a reproduction one, but it's made to the same specs as the ones you see in the pictures here. This one here is an original. This is an original as well. Okay, what do we got next here? Okay. Jody mentioned the boat that Ellwyne made. Now, this is not the boat that my grandmother showed me when I went up in the attic with my grandmother and she opened up the trunk and showed me stuff of Ellwyne's. She showed me a boat there. Now, Jim May, I was hoping he was going to be here tonight. Jim May has the boat that my grandmother showed me. I'm not sure whether this one was still in the trunk or not, but the other one stuck in my mind more because it was painted a bright blue color. And did you put the picture of that in the book? No, I think you do have a picture of it though. Yeah. Anyways, it was very similar to this one here. Same shape, same style, everything. And Jim inherited it through his grandmother's and through his mother's estate. And but the way I got this one was, and I wasn't even sure what I was buying at the time, but I went to Valletta McFarland's auction sale. Maybe some of you people were even there. It was held in the arena here in Glencoe. After she passed, all of her stuff was taken there to the auction sale, and that was would have been my uncle Bill and cousin Ron and Marjorie Zavitz that were in charge of that. And all that stuff was taken to the auction sale. Well, I was there that day at the auction sale and I saw this boat and I couldn't believe it. So I asked them, I said, where did that boat come from? And Marjorie or Ron, one of them said, well, that was in Valletta's keepsakes. And so I knew then, well, hey, there's a good chance this boat has something to do with Ellwyne Ballantyne. And because I know my grandmother told me that at a certain time, she figured, well, hey, Valletta is the closest relative. The stuff I have of Ellwyne should go to Valletta, his half sister. Now Valletta's died. I go to the auction sale and this boat turns up at the auction sale. So I bought the boat. I brought it home. I showed it to my dad and I said, hey, what do you think of this, Dad? And he said, man, I haven't seen that for a long time. I said, what do you mean? He said, I found that in the old woodshed here on the farm years after Ellwyne had died over in France. Oh. And he said, my mother told me that he made that while he was here. So he actually made two boats, the one that Jim May has, and this one, he painted the other one. This one here was never painted. Now, I guess I've often wondered, see the door, this is part of a door handle here. You know, the old porcelain kind that have the metal inside of them? Well, that's what this is. And I've often wondered, well, did my dad put this on here so he could throw this out in a pond and it would always turn right side up and then watch it float in? Or did Ellwyne Ballantyne put it on there? So I guess we'll never know that. Now here's another or so. After Ellwyne's death, and Jody covers this so well in the book. So I don't forget, I should say that even though there's a percentage of this book that's actually fact, it's about real people, real circumstances, real situations, most of it. But the dialogue that Jody has put in this book, it just blew me away when I kept reading. Like she would write so much and then send me computer copies of what she had wrote, and I would say, well, this isn't really right here. That word should be changed there. This and that and the other thing and that. But what really amazed me was like that she could put words into my grandparents' mouths and other people that lived around Crothers Corner exactly the way they said them, with the same same words, same ways of expressing themselves and everything. I guess you don't realize an area is different until you move out of it. But I've been out of this area now since 1971, and my kids drew this to my attention. First of all, they said, "Oh, Dad, you know, the area you came from, we've been back into it a few times, and you know, it's just different. You know, the people think different there. They talk different. They act different. They got different values. They don't change, and they stick to what they believe. And and they talk different." And so what really is, and I guess I kind of got out of this myself a little bit, being away for so long. And then when I read what Jody wrote, it just all came back to me. Man, that's the way my grandmother talked. That's the way my Uncle Neil talked. That's the way these people were. And so anyways, I guess that really amazed me. One other thing here, a couple other things here. This here is still unanswered. This was found in the attic. It has the letters on it, C, A, B, no, E, EAB, EAB, and it opens up like this. It's got pockets inside of it. And I don't, if anybody here has ever seen anything like this or knows what it might be, I'd really like to talk with you. Now, here's what my suspicion is on it. There's a story that's been circulated in the family, and it's a true one, that Ellwyne Ballantyne was given, like his mother and his father were really well off in India. Like they lived a high up British style life in India. And one of the gifts that were sent from his mother had died, but his grandmother was still alive. His grandmother regularly sent letters to him at Crothers Corners. She sent gifts, she sent money, she sent different things. And one time what she sent was a deck of playing cards, and these playing cards were solid ivory. And my grandmother, being a strict Presbyterian and totally against card playing, her stepfather was a gambler, and he would go up north in the wintertime and gamble, and all the money that he made up in the logging camps in the wintertime, none of it ever came back to the family because he lost it all up north in the logging camps in Quebec. And he ended up himself coming back in a coffin here to the Glencoe train station, and the family had to go out and pick up the coffin at the train station. So this was my grandmother's stepfather. And so she was totally against card playing. So when Ellwyne got this deck of ivory cards, can you imagine what those things would be worth today? She told him, well, you know, you're not going to be allowed to play those cards in my house. I'm not going to get rid of them or tell you to throw them out because they're too valuable. But you can keep them here while you're here, but I don't want to ever see them. And I don't want you to ever be playing them in my house. Now, I got a suspicion that this is what the playing cards came in. Because when I went through the attic, the playing cards weren't there. I don't know whether Ellwyne took them with him when he went overseas or not, probably. But this here was left, and I got a suspicion this is what the playing cards came in. But that's just my idea. Here's some other unique things here too. After Ellwyne's death, there was two guys especially, or it's written, actually, it's written here on, this is my dad's handwriting on here, and it says English penny, 1861, given to Archie Crothers, that's my dad, in 1918 by Reg Lovell, who stayed here after returning from the First World War. And then also a 5 German mark bill given to RCA Crothers by William Hawes in 1918 after staying here following the First World War. Now, according to what my dad told me and what he wrote on here, these two guys came and stayed. And I don't know whether it was for days or whether it was for weeks, or I don't know how long a period of time it was. But anyways, they were both returned soldiers. And when they first came back, they stayed with my grandparents at Crothers Corners. And it's a well-known, and I've heard this from many people, that on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evenings, these two guys, along with some other returned soldiers, would gather in my grandparents' home. My grandmother had a pump organ, which was a bit unusual for back in those days. She learned to play on the keyboard from a traveling spinster music teacher that traveled. Some of you guys that know the history of Mosa probably could even tell me her name. Harold, do you know her name? The traveling spinster lady who traveled in Mosa back in well, let's see, that would be late 1800s, and give music lessons. Well, that's how my grandmother learned to play the organ. This lady would come along, and she knew that if she ended up at their place near sunset, they would put her up for the night, and she would give my grandmother, the child in the house, a free music lesson. So my grandmother knew how to play the organ. These two returned soldiers, along with some other returned soldiers, would gather there Sunday evenings, and they would sing hymns around the pump organ with my grandmother playing it. So when these guys came there, my dad would have been about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old at the time. They wanted to give him a gift, these returned soldiers. So these two gifts that are in here, the one came from Reg Level, the penny here, and Dad actually scratched on the back of it that it was from a gift from Reg Level in 1918. And then the 5-mark German bill here came from the other guy, and what was his name? Hawes, William Hawes. And I think that's the same guy. There's a picture of Ellwyne and a chum that he brought home with him when he came home from basic training that one last time. And I'm pretty sure that other man in the picture in the uniform is Billy Hawes. So anyways, oh, here's something. Now this Ellwyne was killed, and Jody covers all of this in the book. He died in the Battle of Lens. And this picture here, and it tells on the back all about the Battle of Lens. This picture here shows the carnage and what it was like at the Battle of Lens. I'll put it in the Viewmaster here. If your eyes are, some people's eyes focus on these and some don't. You can have a look at it. You just slide this here. I notice you guys have one over here. If you just slide this ahead and back, you can get a 3D picture of it. And if you look close in that picture, you'll see there's a gun there, and there's dead bodies laying around way over on the far side. There's a helmet like this here or there, and inside the helmet is still a head. All that, and this is where Ellwyne was killed. So and let's see, what else do I have in here? Oh, this is just a little souvenir. I picked this up at a gun show. Those of you who are antique collectors and maybe interested in military stuff and that have probably seen some of these. I actually had a guy in my workshop a few months ago, because there's a bunch of guys that meet there on Thursday nights, and they're collectors and mainly of military stuff. The one guy had a collection of these, and he had about 50 different ones. These were made, they're what they call war trench art, and they're little letter openers that the soldiers would have made by the guys that were back where it was safe to do this kind of work, and then they would send them home to their family, and it's a little letter opener. This one here really appealed to me because they would mark different things on, and this one here has got Lens on it to commemorate the Battle of Lens.
What's it made out of?
This part of it here is a 303 British, case, like a bullet. Well, just the casing, the bullet was out here, the bullet's been shot. But this one here is actually even from that time period. If you look on the end here, it's got the year on it. It's a 1918 cartridge made in Canada. So, oh, one more thing. When I was growing up, there was an old, this is a reproduction that I just made recently within the last year or two, during COVID. So COVID gave us time to do lots of things. The original one like this here, my dad used to keep all of his soldering equipment in. So there was muriatic acid in there, and any of you guys that know anything about soldering will know that if you use muriatic acid for a flux, you have to cut it with zinc so that it won't eat the galvanizing off of the metal if you're soldering two pieces of galvanized together. Well, anyways, my dad kept that acid mix in here in a bottle, and the bottle would get tipped and leak out, and well, you know what acid does to metal, it eats it away. Well, over the years, it eat into the wood, but it also eat all the nails up, and the thing was all falling apart. Back a few years ago, when my brother and I sold the family farm, this old toolbox, and the reason why it meant something to me was that my dad told me that Ellwyne made this toolbox for my grandmother to keep her little tools in the house while he was living there before he went overseas. So that toolbox was always kind of special to me, but when we sold the farm, the toolbox that fell apart, the wood was rotten, it wasn't even sitting up like this, it was all flat. So anyway, but I kept it anyways and put it in a plastic bag. And during COVID, I always thought I'm going to rebuild that toolbox, that tool tote. And in the meantime, too, in the same woodshed on the farm that Dad found this as a kid, I didn't find the stencil that Ellwyne had made to put this on here. At least I figured it was, because it looked the same. It was the same design. The letters were the same and everything. And it was just a little piece of cardboard like this with tools cut into it. But guess what it was made from? It was made from a Kellogg's cornflakes box. But then I got thinking, this Kellogg's cornflakes don't go back to the time when Ellwyne was at Crothers Corners. I don't think he left in 1915. I don't know. Maybe Ellwyne didn't make this toolbox. Maybe the whole story's not even right. But then I was having breakfast and looked at the Kellogg's cornflake box, and sure enough, established 1904. And so I knew that it was from the right time period. My dad said that Ellwyne made the box. And so this is my reconstructed box. So Jody, you're totally right on saying if you don't record something, it's gone in 3 generations. So what I wrote on the end here was, it's a copy of the original tool tote made by Ellwyne Ballantyne when he lived with J.A. Crothers on Lot 16, Concession 4, Middlesex County. So that's the end of my speech. Thanks for being such a good audience.
Does anybody have any questions for either James or Jody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a succession plan for the story keeper?
You're gonna have to
Who's the next story keeper? Who are you passing the story on to? Next generation?
Well, I'm not sure. I know we have a couple family members. My oldest son and my youngest son are both really interested in Ellwyne's life. Christopher is so interested in it that if you guys go to see the Buttonwood tree during the month of November, you will see there's some big poppies about this big around out in front of it. And my one son, Christopher, he made those a few years ago, and he puts them up there every year in memory of Remembrance Day in Ellwyne. Now, he's not a real storyteller, but he knows the story. Actually, he was the first person in our family to ever visit Ellwyne's grave over in France. Yeah, and now Jim May and his wife have visited it too, but that was years later. Christopher was the first one. He was on he went with his friend over to Europe there and traveled all around there one summer, and he made a point to go and see Ellwyne's grave.
More questions? This one?
Why did he end up with the brothers? Yeah.
How did it?
Like,
Oh,
You have to read the book.
okay. Yeah, it's all laid out in the book. I'll just give you the answer to that really quickly. His stepmother was a niece of Christopher Crothers, who was my great grandfather. And so they were looking for a place to immigrate to, and she said, "Hey, I got an uncle that lives in Canada. Why don't we see if we can go and visit him?"
That's the nice version of the story. It's a little darker in the book.
Question for Jody. I've got a message on my phone from May 26, 2020, when you contacted me asking me about the story on Ellwyne. Any idea, just to give these people some idea, how many hours do you think you put into writing this book?
Oh,
Actually, tell them what your original goal was
Yeah.
in terms of the number of words, and then what you ended up with.
My original goal was a short story for the CBC short story contest, which is 2,500 words. And I ended up writing 100,000 words. Probably easily spent 60 hours just talking to James. And then writing, I still have a full-time job, and I would do writing on the weekends and in the evenings. And the process, with a 1-year break in between, was 3 years. I'm not-
Great, well,
Oh, thank you.
you should read.
Yeah, I was really, you know the outcome, right? You know the end of the story. So I was really amazed at how you were able, to put words in people's mouths, and I just wondered how that came about, because it was so interesting.
It kind of took a life of its own at one point, where I would sit quietly, as I was advising anyone who's interested in being a storyteller to do. Sit quietly, and I would imagine in my head what people were saying and how people were saying it and to whom. And I would have visions in my head of how things played out, knowing that we had a few of the facts, not all of the facts, not even close to all of the facts. Yeah, just put a lot of quiet time into thinking about how things might have happened. As I mentioned, my grandfather is a veteran of World War I, so I feel like I kind of, if there's an era I would want to go back to find out what it was like for Canadians and people living at that time, it would be that era. So I kind of have that connection, and that definitely drove a lot of the research that I did. I would hate for anybody to look at my browsing history on my computer for the things that I would research to try to find